Welcome to the Dr. Dad's podcast, where a naturopath and chiropractor come together each week to share lifestyle medicine, health advice, and inspiring interviews with some of the top experts in health and wellness, bringing you the latest in nutrition, exercise, ancient healing, toxins and detox, your microbiome, mindset, hormones, brain, and much more. Stay tuned. We're going to teach you how to experience growth daily.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Dr. Dad's podcast. I'm here with my main man, Dr. David Wardy. How's El Paso this time of year, buddy?
Buddy, it's been raining a lot. You guys
Really?
getting any rain? Because we're getting your rain right now.
Vancouver is just beautiful as ever. We're still stuck in summer, which is great. So funny that down in El Paso you guys are getting rain and we're nothing but sunshine.
Yeah, now we're having another green desert year, which is a rare thing. But yeah, it's been nice, man. Nice, cool mornings, evenings, nice rain hitting us every other day. So I'm loving it because you know how dry it gets down here.
No kidding. Well, I don't because I haven't been there yet, but when I do go, I'll be able to see it for myself.
Right.
Buddy, we've got such an amazing guest on. I'm so excited to have Jay DeMerit here. He's an ex-pro footballer, played for Watford. I'm going to introduce him just a little bit, but it's funny because we connected first on Instagram. He's like, we have a mutual friend, and the mutual friend was like, hey, Jay's looking for a charger for his Aura ring. And like, as soon as someone has an Aura ring, swollen up. Yeah. As soon as someone has an Aura ring, like you know they must know some stuff that you want to talk to them about. And so we ended up, getting a chance to connect a little bit. And as soon as he started telling me about his foundation, which he's going to get into, I had to invite him onto the podcast. So let me give you a little backdrop of Jay. He's actually a U.S. Citizen living in Canada. He grew up playing on Premier League in Chicago. Eventually made his way overseas. I don't know if he knew at the time he was going to play for Premier League, but he made his way into the Watford Football Club, played in the Premier Division 2006, 2007. I mean, this guy is like the cream of the crop. He played in the highest ranking, football league in the world. And then he came back to Vancouver to play for our local team who entered into the MLS called the Vancouver Whitecaps. And now he's put his energy, and I'm going to get him to share more in depth on that, into leadership and really talking to the next generation of athletes and how to be more versatile and maybe your mindset and your focus, and how to not just put all your maybe eggs in one professional basket, but to really, spread your wings and learn more about yourself in this journey. So, and he's doing leadership camps and things with kids here. It's just amazing. But anyways, Jay, thank you so much for being here on the call with us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Anytime, I get a chance to share, some of the unique experiences that I've been so fortunate to have, I welcome the opportunity. And, again, like you said, Nick, when we connected first time, again, I kind of felt the same way, that I could see that, your interests are where they should be. Your understanding of people and how you try to do good in your world, again, is very clear. And so, again, I'm very happy to come on a podcast with you guys. So thanks for having me.
Awesome. So he's also a dad too, right? So
yes, I have a 6-year-old, and actually his mom's an Olympic gold medalist, and so together we are quite a couple that we're no longer together. So I do a lot of co-parenting these days too, which I'm happy to talk about. We very happily co-parent and are able to figure out that relationship within our parenting world. And what a world we live in, but we do the best we can, and we've been able to, so far so good. As a 6-year-old, he's a happy kid.
It's amazing. Awesome. I mean, I love that you shared that, because it just shows like wherever you're putting your energy, I mean, you're making success happen. And I know not that Jay has the most perfect life, but he's really disciplined himself in order to move towards success, and that's something that I really gathered from you in our first few interactions. And it's almost like I don't know what it is, like maybe it's like, can you give us a little bit of an idea of that sort of success mindset and what happens when you stumble through different things, and why that's so important to you? Because I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think mine was it was kind of built through a couple of different ways. One is of course the the power of positivity. I think I had two really good friends when I was a teenager, and they're still my best friends now, and we were just always like, we always used to talk about how awesome everything was. Yeah, but it was kind of a shitty situation, whatever. But we were like, yeah, but that part's awesome. Like you meet somebody, who follows you, whatever, and you're like, yeah, but at least your shoes are pretty cool. We'd always be like, always saying like one-upping each other to like to say how awesome everything was. But it was just in a way to kind of really create the power of positivity. And how when that happens, there are really no problems. They're just, problems that have something awesome within them. So we'll just focus on that. And so within that, like, I guess I've kind of developed that mindset. I remember really thinking about it more consciously, probably in my teenage years. Like as I got into college, that's when I really hung out with my friend Ty. Again, he ended up being my first business partner. We're still business partners now, 16 years later. So, again, you got to have the right people on board, I think. And I was someone that, again, came from a good family. I had a good support system. Both my parents were teachers, gym teachers. And so I was always around coaches and educators. They were kind of always in the same little ring where I grew up. And I grew up with a lot of different things around in my life. I played basketball, I ran track. My dad was the track coach. His mom was a track coach. And so I think, I just grew up in that environment where you were inquisitive, but you also supported at the same time. And I think having that upbringing was a big advantage to me, because when I started to make my own decisions as like a 22-year-old, 23-year-old, I got to school. I went to Chicago for university. That was kind of my first like get out of town, 18, 19 years old, from Green Bay, Wisconsin. Again, coming from support, coming from a holistic environment of participation. I think and again, I build that into my programs as I go here. But I come from that environment, and we are products of our environment. I'm sure you guys see this a lot, but my environment was safe. My environment was encouraging, but it was also like encouraging me to try new things and to really keep accountability within who I was, and whether it was my grades or whether it was just showing up on time or whether it was like winning the trophy. All that stuff mattered. And I would say, like, as people always say, like, what were your parents like? I would be like, they were really supportive, but they kept me accountable. If I scored 2 goals in a game and the next game I wasn't even walking, I was running around and not paying attention, my dad would have me in the car and be like, you know what, dude, last week I watched you and you're this guy, and like today you're walking around like you know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff where it's critical, but it's not like get out of my car and never want to talk to you again kind of idea. And I think getting that right is important in development and how we coach it, and how we coach it. Like, also how we live in a world now where criticism is actually really, you got to be really careful. You can't say what we used to be able to say or talk about what my parents would say to me, but you got to adapt too. And so, but again, I come from those environments, and I think it really helped me as I started to get into my own world at 22, 23, because I had that support, but I also knew enough because I had kept myself accountable, and people have also kept me accountable at the same time, where I could be clear in my decision making.
Mm-hmm. What about that idea or that vision or the dreaming that you did at a young age? Did that play a role? Like, did you see yourself playing in the Premier League? Like, what were sort of like was it like, wow, I'm actually here? Or did you kind of have that idea that you saw yourself there? What was some of that sort of interpretation that you had in your dreaming?
I think it's a good question, because it does kind of lead into what I was just saying. As like 18, 19, you come in, you're green behind the ears, you don't really know what you're doing. You come into college again. I know you play sports and those at those levels, and it's like you kind of get why you're there. You're generally, if you get a scholarship at something, you're pretty good at something, so you'll have a little bit of confidence in your skills. And again, like. And I came from a small town, so I had a nicer attitude. I wasn't like the big kid in this. I got recruited very small out of high school, so I had to come in with a little bit of humility and all those other things. But at 23, I was an All-American, but I didn't break it. I didn't get drafted. But at least I knew my story enough to know that because I came from that back door, and because I didn't have like this whole academy upbringing where I was like told I was awesome all the time, and I had played U16 national team and played for my national team. Like, I didn't have that traditional story to like why are the pros make it, like especially in soccer, these kids are all state, moving into their national teams, regional teams, whatever it is. And then they make it pro. Like, that was the path, like for 99% of the people, you know what I mean? Even back then it was the majority of the path, now even more so. But again, like I didn't play soccer on a full-time level until I was 19, because I was playing basketball and running track in the other seasons. And so I didn't play soccer full-time until I was almost out of the academy system. Wow. And so no one knew who I was. No one knew, my name wasn't on that piece of paper. And then all of a sudden I had 3 years, and I changed positions in college, and then became an All-American and defender. And that's why I only had almost 2 years of like being known. And so by then I'm like, if you look at a list of like a scout anywhere in the world, I'm going to be like off the page, like, you know what I mean? And I guess that understanding, being conscious of like who I was and what I was good at, and really assessing myself all the time. And again, I went to school for design, so I was taught through a design brain, like how to look at a problem creatively, or how do you, I went to school for product design. So that teaches you how to take any problem from a TV remote to a car and go, okay, what can I fix with that? How do I mimic that? Which parts work? Which parts do I need to change? And then this time I'm going to change the wheels and make them of different material. Like, that's design mind. There's no like, oh my God, this car sucks, I'm never going to build a car again. Like, you don't really learn to think that way. You learn to think of like, this is something that exists. How do I make it better? How do I not take things personal along the way? Because when you design products, you get criticized all the time. Like, again, like you make a remote for the first time, all of a sudden everyone's emailing Sony and being like, oh, this remote sucks. The buttons don't work and all these other things. And so in a way, like, you think of life that way as when you train in this. I went to school for 4.5 years and got my degree in it. And so I think I had that built inside of me too, without knowing it. I didn't know that until I've done lots of things looking back at my story now over the last 15 years. But like, when I spoke to the design community, that's really what I figured out. It was like this whole idea of like, as an artist and especially as a designer, I'm sure if you guys have studied design thinking, but like, it's a mindset, but it's also about this like ever evolving product that you're just trying to make better every day. And you can change it. We have the knowledge as humans to change our buttons, to understand what's not good about us. What's our user experience? Is everyone telling me a jerk and telling me that I'm an asshole? Then maybe I am. If the user reviews are telling me this in a bunch of different ways, but if I'm not listening, but again, if I am listening, then I should be able to refine myself with that. And I think I was very much of that mindset where, when I left from college to England with nothing but a backpack at 23 years old and a design degree, thinking I'm going to go be a Premier League soccer player. No, like, to answer your question very long-windedly, that's not really what I was thinking. It was just like, I feel like I have something else to give. I feel like they don't know my story. I know myself to know enough that I should listen to the head coach of this pro team that said I'm not ready. I should listen to the guy next to me that's from England who used to play for a third division team in England and said, dude, you should go to England. I can see your game suiting yourself well there. Because these are like, you got to look at the people around you, but I think you also have to listen to yourself. And most importantly, because only you know you, no one knows you better than you, in my opinion, especially if you've been paying attention and you have good support. And like, bad support, you may not know. Because if your parents don't care and you don't listen to anyone telling you how bad or good you are, then that's when decisions can go wrong. But again, if you're conscious, you have a lot of friends that are telling you, no, dude, go, like, good job. Like 2 years ago, you're like 10 times the player that you were. And you just like, keep going. That I was getting those whispers from people. Again, it wasn't someone that would give me a contract, but it was still someone that I felt like I could believe. And again, going back to that source of me just being able to understand and really believe in myself was the biggest thing, because I got to be the one that does it. And we teach this all the time, especially because our programs are teenagers. And so again, they all think that they've made it. Mm-hmm. They go play for the Whitecaps, and I go speak to the U16s, or I go talk to a U16 kid, and like telling me that like they're going on this tour, and I'm just like, but yeah, dude, there's 35,000 kids in your position right now. You know what I mean? But we're not telling them the numbers. We're not telling them the realities that they face. And we're not giving them that objective approach to constructive, supportive criticism. Mm-hmm. And so again, I've always been like that. And I think that the 7 of the 10 years I played pro, I was chosen captain by the managers. And so again, it wasn't because I was exemplary at the position. It was because I was relatable in that room. And you're really relatable when you know what it's like to sit on the bench. You know what it's like to be punched in the face. You know what it's like to win a trophy. You know what it's like to not have anyone believe in you. You know what it's like to believe in yourself. All those things allow a leadership to kind of happen. And only through my kind of well-rounded experience, again, good and bad, that's how you become well-rounded in this life, is it was apparent to a lot of people that kind of would put me in that leadership position. But then because I was in a lot of those positions, I did want to relate. I could relate to the guy sitting on the bench and be like, dude, I know exactly what this feels like. Yesterday you came in training and you were a bit off the races, and I know what it feels like to like feel like you're not going to play the rest of the season. But then I'm like, but dude, you're making $5,000 a week right now by sitting on this bench, and I know how far it took for you to get here, and I know what it's like to sit on that bench for $40. And believe me, bro, you got a much better time right now. And so I think it's your time to get the most out of the situation. You could sit here and dwell on not playing. You could be mad at the coach and call him a dickhead and do whatever you want. But at the end of the day, like, you're sitting on this bench for $5,000. So if you want to be a part of this group, you better get your stuff together and we'll get through it. 9 times out of 10, it works because they know that I am right in that situation. They know that I did sit on that bench and paying for $20 a game, eating spaghetti every week because that's all I could afford. And so, within that comes this experience of relation, and I think relation is a huge part of leadership.
I love that. David, go ahead. There's so much we could talk about there.
You just threw like 30 nuggets, Jay, and I'm trying to pick pieces, okay? But I want to back up. I have a couple questions just so I don't lose my thought. You hear a couple things. You live your life in creation. You're a creator. I'm a creator. So me and Nick totally get what you're talking about. I mean, it's just one of those things where we want to make things better, right? And it sounds like you've done that pretty much from early age all the way to adulthood right now. And you don't live in this reactivity to the environment around you, which I love, right? Mm-hmm. The other piece that you were talking about really quick that I want to talk about is the multi-sport. So let me ask you something. You didn't just play soccer, you played these other sports. How do you think big picture, like with your athletic career, playing multi-sports helped you in the longevity, even just playing soccer? Because, you hear this big argument amongst young athletes these days, and there's this thing of like some coaches wanting their athletes just to play one sport. Like, if you're going to play basketball, then you're just going to play for me, and I don't want to see you playing any other sports. I mean, to the point where they won't even start certain kids because they go and play other sports.
100%.
So how do you feel about that? I'm curious on the multi-sport argument.
Oh, I'm a strong advocate for a holistic environment, especially in a sporting environment. I have reasons why, and the main one is my own experience. Again, like soccer's played with 11, basketball's played with 5, track and field is played with 1. And so that alone, from a social experiment to an individual experience, all become incredible for your development. Because if you got 4 people to talk to, it's a very different communication level than it is if I got 10 guys to talk to, right? And in soccer, 90 minutes continuous is very different than every 35 seconds. A timeout comes, the substitutions there, and it's also very different when I got a 400-meter race to prepare for a pole vault. And I got a high jump 6 foot. If I'm going to think I have a good match, that's me versus me. Like that has nothing to do with the competition that's around me. That's me inside of my own mind. That's going to prepare for that jump. It's going to put that pole up and go. And that's what I did in my experience, right? And so that alone, I think multi-sport is in what I always say to kind of combat this problem. If the programs don't want that, is bring in other sports and put a basketball court in your gym. You're still controlled in the soccer community. Bring in a basketball coach, again, who would love to come and train with his professional soccer players. You know what I mean? Like, what ex-basketball and university person in Dallas, LA, Chicago wouldn't be like, what? I can come train some professionals or some semi-pro soccer kids and like teach them how to play basketball or like help with their athleticism, because on corners, it's exactly the same defending, because it is. And that's what made me a good defender. And so this is kind of where I was going, and I give you a kind of a personal experience of why is I play basketball, and my job on the basketball court was to shut down the forwards so that they're scoring forward. I scored 6 points a game. I was a point guard, but my job was defensive. So I would take their scoring forward, their Michael Jordan of the team, and my goal was to shut them down. And so I became kind of like that defender. I had good accolades my senior year. I actually had a Division III scholarship to play basketball, but I had a Division I scholarship to play soccer. There's the only 2 scholarship offers I got. Both very minimal, weren't full rides or anything like that, but I got offers in those 2 directions. And I was just a lockdown D. And so all of a sudden, there I am, my freshman year at college playing soccer, coming in as a forward, a goal scorer, and we got a red card and an injury to 2 defenders in our first preseason tournament. So we were out of defenders. And so there I am, like this new kid from Green Bay, like not supposed to play. They're thinking about redshirting me, and I wasn't really playing. And the coach calls me to his office. He's like, "Hey man, like I see you're like quite athletic, like because I came in athletic. I wasn't very skillful in the position, so I wasn't a very technical player. I was just a good athlete, and I kind of get away with it, like a lot of young college first years are. You know, we come from small towns, we come from places where we're the big fish, and then we got to go to the next pool up, and that's people from all around your area, and to see how good you are. And so similar type of concept. And so I was like, again, positive. I was coachable. I'm like, sure, coach. Like, if you think that I can do that, I said, I've defended in basketball before. And so I played 2 games for the rest of that tournament. We ended up like getting to the final of that tournament. We didn't win it, but like, it gave me a good environment to really test my skills to see if I liked it, but also if I was any good at it. And I never left that position for the rest of my career. And in 3 games, I learned that for 19 years, I've been playing out of position. And so that was another way that I think basketball for allowing me to be a better soccer player. And again, I knew how to run. I was fast because my dad taught me how to run, because him and my grandma were, famous Wisconsin track coaches that, know how to develop runners. And so I look at that in my experience, and then again, add on to the art, which we've already talked about. Like, think about that from a holistic experience that allowed me to go and do what everyone else thought is impossible. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's reasons for that. And I think a lot of it is because of this holistic mindset, but also, because I got to do a bunch of different things and be in a different social situation. I do call on social a lot in development, because I don't think, again, like, you think about those sports kids that you were talking about, the 14-year-olds, they all wear the same jacket to the same place, and all their families are around the same people, right? Yeah, they might have a different color skin, or they might live in a different neighborhood, but generally it's like, you play for the team that's around you, that's at the level you are, and that you pay for that jacket, right? Whatever that is. And that's music, art, sports, whatever. It doesn't matter. But the idea is like, why aren't we creating a more well-rounded experience for them? What if we're trying to develop? We're not trying to turn them into contracted professional athletes. That's a whole nother story. And again, I think we get these things mixed, like they're the same thing, but they're not. They're completely different. If you have a 12-year-old, why are you treating him like he's LeBron James? He's not. He wants to be LeBron James. Every YouTube video of how to be like LeBron James is on there. And now he's being bought into that idea. And it's doing a really disservice to his experience as a 12-year-old. Show him that video when he's 20, when he's already won the trophies and he's in the conversation. Then you give him the high performance. How do you stay here? How do you stay consistent as a pro? Conversations and curriculums. In development, if I'm 12, I believe that doing everything you possibly can to give that person a wealth of experience through their own lens, because only then can they drive their own ship. And if we're in development, that is what we're teaching. We're not teaching trophies or how to be like somebody else. We're teaching that person to develop their own mind and their own skills by 18 or 19, that they can take care of themselves. That's basis. That's what we're trying to do. We get all this stuff mixed up there. Where are you going to school? How are you going to be the next X? Are you going to make money? Are you going to do this? It's like all these results up here, when really all of them are a byproduct of how you can actually come up as an 18-year-old and go, that's what I want. I'm going to get it 9 times out of 10. But we're not doing that anymore. We're selling Kool-Aid that actually isn't real. And we're taking all the money along the way. So we create mental health issues as a result. That's where we're at.
Man, the way you painted that picture is so brilliant, and it crosses so many different platforms. Like, it's not just about sport, and the way that I hear you describing this. And I remember even when I was playing high school into college basketball, I was so tied to the identity that this is the position I play, this is what I do when I'm on the court. And I know, looking back, I wasn't very coachable at all. I really wasn't, because I had an idea of how I wanted to be based on the people I looked up to. And it took me many years to develop more of this holistic mindset that you're describing. And so, man, the importance that of this message that you're sharing right here should be something that I really hope people take to heart, because, as you said it, as you create all these different experiences for people, they get to reflect that experience off their own mindset to see where their gifts are. And so much of our life is like in this like narrow groove of experience where we just can't see who we are in that, because we're stuck on that narrow groove. Yeah, that's brilliant, man.
And I totally agree. And even on top of that, it's like, how do you train that? And how do you bring tools, or how do you give people versions to practice that safely? Again, like we got to talk about safety too, because we also live in an unsafe world where people are being exploited in all sorts of directions, and that it doesn't allow people to learn freely. When we start learning with restrictions, or we start putting restrictions on the learner, it's again, like if you're developing, you should want to fail. We should want to create systems of challenge, but also giving people tools instead of trying to tell them all the time. This is the big issue with development now. You can Google anything. You can grab this thing and you can just Google whatever you want. And A, you can probably find the answer you're looking for, whether it's true or not. B, there's no way to filter if that is true or not. And C, it's creating a false sense of identity because I read something instead of doing that something, because I didn't actually do it, because I catch the kids on it all the time. Like in my pro, they're all talking, chatting shit. And I'm like, hold on. Did you read that? Or have you done that? Because if I had done that and I can hear them talking, I'll be like, whoa. Did you do that? They'll be like, what? They'll be like, did you do that though? What you're talking about? Or did you just read it on the internet? And somebody tell you that, some article they read. 9.9 times out of 10, the answer is, yeah, I just read it. You know what I mean? Like they didn't actually do it. And so there's no validity in the experience anymore. We can't validate what we're doing. And this is the problem. This is a problem in all of us, but it's like, especially in kids, because it's much more serious. You know what I mean? It's much more serious for have them grow up with that's what they think because they read it, instead of like where I grew up, I did it. And so at least I had my own experience. And again, this is where the lens has to come from you. Because again, no kid knows he's good at science until he does it. No kid acts with an actress until he gets to sit there and put the show on. You know, we don't know we're good at something until we do it. And we don't know it because it's built inside of us. Even if somebody else thought you were crap, but you loved it and you felt energy and you felt alive, that's amazing. Do more of that. But again, we're not teaching that. You know, we're not teaching the kid to understand what that feeling is when they feel whole. Because again, if they come down and said that and dad doesn't like acting, he's like, shut up. You don't know how to act. Get over there. I don't want to teach you. I don't want to read your script with you tonight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because that's what's happening. This is all part of the problem, because, and this is why it's important to start with our youth, because, you know, if you created that mindset in your experience till you're 20, what else are you going to do when you're 20? You're just going to listen. You're just going to be like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll go get that finance job that I don't care about. Because when I was 14, I tried to do acting school. My dad told me he couldn't because he didn't like it.
Yeah. And this is where you bring up such an important point on the side of the parenting, because the parents are also stuck in that narrow groove of this is how things traditionally go, and that's how therefore things must go. David, go ahead, man. Like I know you probably have a follow-up question to what you were asking.
No, I mean a couple things. You know, Jay, you were talking about growing up, you always found a silver lining to almost everything, right? Like, oh, that sucks, but this is awesome. And it kind of sounds like throughout your career, you were even talking about, you know, how some people would try to place doubt on future and sports for you, and other people would lift you up and tell you like that's a possibility. You know, I think a lot of young athletes are told a lot of things as they're being developed and as they're making their way from, you know, adolescence through maybe college ball and maybe to something more. But, you know, what's that mindset there? If you could talk a little bit, you know, to us and, you know, our listeners of, I think a lot of people will just default sometimes when people give them that doubt of like, well, it's too hard to make it pro, or, oh, that'll, you know, that's just the cream of the crop. I mean, a lot of people just take that and accept it and then they just give up, right? So I'm curious on your end, like, I know you had people lifting you and you had people saying it's not possible. What was that switch for you to just keep moving forward? Like, you just kept kind of trucking forward and then it paid off, right? I mean,
well, I think it's a couple reasons. One is, don't just ask one person, ask at least 5. You know what I mean? I think, because again, if the one person had a bad day that day and you're like, hey, how did I play? They'd be like, you played like shit. You know what I mean? Like they would, because this is how we project in this world. But it's also like, that's why it's, in my opinion, important to get multiple opinions if you're making decisions. You know, whatever that looks like. Is it both your parents? Is it your parents and then your teammate you play with? And then it's, you know, some girl that watched you in the stands, and then, you know, literally ask the questions. That's the only way we get answers in this life, is to ask, for the most part. And then they'll tell you. People obviously love that. They love getting asked questions, but we just stop. We've kind of cut down the amount of questions we ask because of this critical world we live in, you know, and I think, you know, finding avenues to ask questions in the right way is also important. Like, when do you ask? Right after he walks out the field and they lose 3-0? Probably not. It's probably not the time to ask. You know what I mean? And that's why, you know, when we warmed up, you know, Saturdays was our game, especially at the professional level. Our feedback room is on Sundays. We don't talk about feedback on Saturdays. right? Because all of a sudden we win 4-0, guys are at each other's throat, and somebody's blaming somebody for something, and the coach comes in and wipes the room. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't the time. And so I think that is also something that's important from a feedback perspective, is making sure that the pathways are safe, but then also that the feedback is at a time where everyone is ready for it. If you know what I mean? I think that helps in a lot of different ways. And I think so that's one thing I've definitely learned throughout that side of things. And I think, the other side is just, again, that self-reflection, understanding yourself. But again, a lot of times you get to the second part after you unlock the first part by actually asking. Because then if I'm right, I don't need anyone else. If I become my own best critic, but I say best critic, not worst critic. Best critics know. Worst critics just are always stabbing. You know what I mean? Best critics like, okay, I see you when you crush it, and I also see you when you crap. Those are best critics because they see you both sides. And again, that's kind of where I came from. But as I became a critic or a leader, you have to be critical. You have to say, listen, this is why it didn't work. This is why I think, I thought I should have covered around that one. And I thought you should have told me, and if I'm not critical that person didn't communicate, and I'm not critical with myself that I should have came behind him earlier to cover him, again, that's good critic. But if I'm like, fuck you don't know what you're talking about, you didn't say anything and all this stuff, that's back to ego, and ego doesn't win when in teamwork and leadership. Like, it just doesn't. And I think, having that, but again, that whole kind of like worldview to unlock your own personal lens that usually is true is kind of the code to making sure that works.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you had to be real honest with yourself a lot of times, man. Like you're saying, that ego gets in the way of a lot of athletes. And they don't have that self-reflection time to be like critical of themselves and think like, oh, I screwed up. Like, next time I need to do better, right? Mm-hmm. And like you're saying, they'll just talk shit and say, no, that was on you, man. Like, kind of deal. Yeah. Okay, and then we'll move forward, man. I have a lot of questions. Like, I'm loving the conversation. We have a lot in common, man. Like, I was an athlete too, but I wasn't the skill guy. I was just an athlete. Mm-hmm. And so I was like the utility guy. I could move around a lot. I got to play a little bit of college ball. I was told I wouldn't be able to play, but I walked on anyway, got to play, got to travel, got to have some fun, have an experience, when I was an undergrad. But it wasn't because I was the best skill position. I never kept myself in the box. And I guess that's my third question. We're talking about development. I think a lot of these kids put themselves in a box, and their parents put them in a box by isolating them with like one sport, or, oh, I'm not going to allow you to do this, or a kid maybe gets interested in, like you were saying, acting, and like the parents like, oh, I don't want you to do that, or The third question I have is, what advice would you give to parents to help them develop their child, as far as, let's say you have a 8-year-old, and let's say they're in soccer, but they've been in soccer for a couple of years, and all of a sudden they're like, I don't like soccer anymore, I want to do this. Like, would you be good with just saying, all right, let's jump ship, let's try something else? Would you stay on to try to stay in soccer for a while and try to do the other? Like, what does that look like? I mean,
well, I think a lot of times, especially again, I had the most experience in kind of the teenagers. So our programs are 12 plus. And so, I'm a big believer in experience, and they'll tell you, a lot of times, again, we're always trying to tell others, be like that, do that. And they're like, God, just let me talk. You know what I mean? Like, just listen to me. I've been wanting this the whole time, but no one seems to be listening. That's like your generalized teenage angst, but it's usually comes from that because it's true. Because again, I create programs and I talk, and then I bring in other like influencers, celebrities, and we're all talking, but if we didn't build in workshops, then it's just a bunch of 3 more people talking them to be like us. And that's not what real mentorship is. And so, mentorship is to talk because experiences should be shared. It's why elders in all Aboriginal communities are just as important now as they have ever been. And because that storytelling element of why elders should talk and kids should listen have been built since the eternity of people, because it works, because it's true. Why we can save a ton of our development as young people if I just listen. If I just listen to the people that have been there before, because then it saves me a bunch of mistakes along the way. If I just want to say, yeah, whatever you say, I'm just going to do it on my own, I'm going to make a lot more mistakes along the way. And that's why mentorship is way more important, especially now, because we have technology that can scale our stories. We don't need to sit on a couch or at a bonfire to learn. Like we can do it through our computers anywhere, anytime. And so I think we could do a better job of that for sure. Finding ways that we can educate or finding ways that we can, tell our kids, this is what's going on out there. Here's some things. Let's go to this show to show you some culture that you can build some humility into your life or because you're not just some privileged kid on YouTube thinking he's going to get a Lamborghini tomorrow because somebody, I just watched that video that said I could. Like, we need to make sure that we still live in the world that they live in. And that what we call it, obviously in our world is meeting them where they are. And that's usually technologically driven, something on their device, something with celebrity, something with, an experience that they could love to go to, a sports game, a movie theater, when Cirque du Soleil comes into town, a music show, you name it. But again, that they'll tell you, if you ask, what do you want to do on Saturday? Oh, I've been thinking about this thing. And as long as you say, I don't know if you guys have seen that movie called Yes Day, where mom's out, nope. And then the kids get all mad and they're like lashing out at school because mom, and all of a sudden she thinks that she's this bad apple and like isn't saying yes every time. And then all of a sudden she has to. So it's kind of like, and then she does, and everyone has fun and the family comes back together, like in a way, that's really what's going on in this world. And it's not the mom's fault. It's our fault by creating shitty systems that allow us to have to be so cutthroat that we're not allowing any fun around here, because how the hell am I going to be LeBron James if I'm not shooting the hoop 47,000 times a week? And it's just like, it's so not true. But again, we've created this narrative within all of the systems, not just sports. But I think, again, changing the narrative is hugely important to how we solve that, or how you actually encourage your kid to go and figure out themselves and to like what they like and to be who they are. And I think all of those all stem from, creating a communication level of safety and support, all while still going, okay, let's review that performance. You got F's, you got D's, you got C's. I don't know, dude. I don't think you can play soccer tomorrow, in all honesty, because you got to get those grades up if you're ever going to be a human that can live in this world. You know what I mean? Like, let's like get some parameters back. Of course, like we have to live in parameters. And that's the only way we ever know if we're doing well or not, in my opinion. When it comes to like results and like the ribbons conversation, like we still have to know who wins. You know what I mean? How we get there and the experience in between is how we create safety. You know what I mean? It's not just, all the back end of participation. I just think that's a little bit too skewed. But again, like I'm a big believer that you have to know why you win, but you have to know why you lose too. And in the middle, you'll always be okay. And again, we're trying to create safety. So at 19 years old, that kid can go out into this world and make their own decisions and be okay with it. And again, then we live and die by the sword. But at the end of the day, we're not doing that. We're not telling our kids they can be anything they want until they're 18. And then all of a sudden you're giving them wings. And we're like, by the time they're 18, they're like, holy shit, I don't know who I am. I don't know what's going on. I'm trying to trust this person. I don't trust that person. I thought I was this, and I have no idea who I am. And I have very limited skills because I wasn't allowed to learn any of them and now I'm 19. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, whose fault is it? I'm ready to blame somebody.
Yeah.
And parents are like, well, who do I blame? Do I blame you, coach? Do I blame you, kid? Like, who do I blame? And the kids are like, I don't know anything. Mm-hmm. This is the problem that we face, in all honesty. And so again, like, my mission is to do something about it, not just talk about it.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the solution, because, and maybe a little bit of the journey of what you've created, and how you're using technology as a tool, and mentorship, and just even on that note of mentorship, I feel like so many people don't even really know authentically what that is. And so, yeah, take us a little bit on that journey of what you've created.
Yeah. So as I came out of the game, again, I was so fortunate to be a leader of a premiership organization. I played in the World Cup. I was, in 2010 for the US and South Africa. And then that allowed this opportunity to be the first signing of a franchise in the MLS and here in Vancouver. And so within that experience, I got to learn so much from leadership, from teamwork, to, what it's like to be the last one picked to the first one picked, at the highest level, and so with that, it becomes this experience. But as I came out of the game, I'm like looking back and I'm going, okay, now what? All the people that have played at that level have an experience and high enough to go and stay involved in the game. Like we should, in my opinion. If you're not, and you've gone and played in a World Cup, and you've played pro, and you're not staying involved in the game, and you hate the game that much, then that's the institution's fault. That's the game's fault. We should give back those experiences. We should share what we have, and then educate the next generation that are trying to be like us. it makes so much sense to me, but I also saw the problems along the way where, I came out of the game and I'm, in a field with 200 kids, all with like 3 cones and a mascot and one other player, because these clubs are all trying to make a bunch of money. They don't care about the development of the kid. They just set up cones and brought out a mascot. They're not, there's like 20 kids per person. And now all these kids are like, I'm going to be the next Whitecap. And they're like all paying $100 for this 2-hour thing. And it's just like, okay, but what are you developing? The only thing you get from those environments is social development. That's it. You're not learning how to be a better soccer player. And so again, I started to look at the programs and be like, hey, I'm going to check you on that. I'm going to say, I'm going to bring in the head of, look at our sponsors. We got BMO, we got, Canby Surgery Center, we got some sports drink, we got, you name it. Look at the boards around every stadium in the world. There's a million highly professional opportunities to choose from if you talk about mentorship and how we can participate in this holistic world of education for our youth. And they're like, well, how much is that going to cost? And how much it all became back down to this bottom line issue of like, they didn't want to do it because it didn't help with making them money. And I'm like, no, you're missing it, because it will, because it creates the culture where the season tickets are coming, whether you win, lose, or draw. But every time I would think about it, and every time I would try to go to the organizations, be like, no, let's change this. I'll bring in the head of BMO. I'll bring in the lead doctor of Surgery Center because I know him, and I know, the captain of the rugby team, and so he'll come in and talk about teamwork, and then we'll bring in a basketball player and we'll talk about winning a trophy in the NBA. And you're like, what? And I'm like, no, like, it's for real. Like, and again, maybe it's just my crazy environment and my attitude, but I was like, how does that not help with our kids? I'm like, well, we just need to teach them how to play soccer, because again, their mindsets, their whole focus is to sell on like Alphonso Davies for $20 million. That's all they care about. They're not trying to develop kids. They're trying to make money, and they're trying to hope that with the one that leaves the program every year actually makes them the money that program costs to tell those kids to be one thing. And again, most of the time it doesn't work. You look across the board to any youth program on this planet, none of them make money. None of them. It's a feeder program so that they can hire 1 or 2 pros out of the 20 that will come through the program every year to hopefully sell on for a bunch of money later. The program suffers. The kids suffer because only one kid gets to go out of the 200 that come into the program every couple of years. So again, they'll go interview the 195 other ones and ask them how their experience was and how they have a bunch of confidence in themselves that they're going to go and be a leader in their professional field that they're frantically trying to search for right now because they've lost everything. I know what they're all going to say because they call me and they go, I don't know what I'm doing. Can you help me? Can you help me get in a scholarship? Can you help me get a job? I know you like art. I think I might like art. Do you know anyone in art that could like help me? Like I've been having these conversations for 15 years, and like it's really frustrating for me because I know we can really stop a lot of these conversations if we give them more of a net along the way, so then they have a better idea at the end. And so, or we give them a better mentorship program. And so at the end, we actually create a feeder program through these 20 brands on the wall that I go, hey, cool. Yeah, we'll take that guy. We just saw him. He did an internship here last year through the program, and he was really cool. Dude, don't even need a safety net. Dude's making more money than he ever would have did if you're making a first year pro. It doesn't, you know what I mean? I would just wish it worked like that, because it should. And it's not hard from either side to do that. Why wouldn't you want those 20 walls getting young athletes like the Whitecaps players that are ready and they know teamwork, they know how to show up on time, they know all those intangibles, but yet they haven't had a skill set to know that they know finance yet. But again, if you listen from the time they're 14 to 19 and now are being released from the program, now they're like, oh yeah, he's been showing financial literacy for the last couple of years. He seems like the math guy. Cool, let's put him through. Like, again, it's almost a different feeder program where it's if the ones that go, great, we all get to cheer for him or her and go, yay, good job. I thought it was going to be you. But then the rest are like, oh, cool. What are you going to do? It becomes almost like a cool thing instead of, holy, what are you going to do with your life? You have mental health issues. Your identity has been taken away. You can't afford the Jordans, that you have on your feet right now anymore because you got to find a job and you don't know because working at Cactus Club isn't a part of your workout. You know what I mean? Like, This is what's happening everywhere. And so, yeah, so I just I looked back on that and saw those experiences. And I just thought, you know what, I need to do my own program. So I started Rise+Shine 7 years ago. And so it's a summer program. We've now done them in 5 cities across North America. And so it's, again, we plug them into anywhere because it's all about mentorship and a high performance mindset, which teaches, like, through workshops, a seed planting of skill set. And so we teach mindset first, because if you have a mind, you can do anything. If you have a skill set, you can do one thing. And so our concept of this is that we teach mindset first through the eyes of the mentors. Again, it's a mentorship program first. And that's why we've been able to expand the program, is because we have the music program, which is our DJ camps. We do soccer camps, and then we do the leadership programs, which are generalized leadership, 12 plus. If you want to come learn about leadership, it's through the mentors of the day. And so they'll get, our camps are 3 to 4 days. We've even done 1-day workshops where they're just long day. And so we teach the skill sets through the eyes of the mentors. And so if it's a chef, they'll come in, they'll talk about what's it like to be the head chef at said restaurant that all kids go to and they all love it, again, depending on where you live. So we'd usually take, the head chef at some cool restaurant downtown and ask them to come out for a day. And so they come out in the afternoon after the skill set is taught in the morning. And so the first thing we teach is through our mental performance consultant. She's our friend Danny. So she's my partner in our programs. She's a DJ. She just played Coachella, one of the top music festivals in the world, this summer. So she's a DJ, but she actually has her master's in sports psychology. And so she's Team BC's mental performance coach, or was, for Canada Games. She works with Olympic athletes. She works with kids. She does a bunch of different things. And so these are the people that I bring into my team because they're just like me. And so, and again, we've had a mindset of success, and that's what we're trying to create. That's what we're trying to develop. And so we've built these camps, and they started in Pemberton. So there's nature built into it. We now run them out of Squamish. I own 160 acres on the beach up there with a couple of friends so we run the programs in nature, and we always make sure that the kids are holistic in why they come. And so how we do that is, and again, that was kind of to combat the idea of all the jackets look the same and all the kids end up being like that, is that if you can create a situation where that doesn't happen in a controlled environment, then we give the kids a social environment that will help them grow. And so that's why we run a music festival, which is the fundraiser. And then that raises money to send free kids, which we get from the local programs. And so I go out, I get this pool of money from a bunch of adults and professionals that all come out to a music festival. And the ticket price goes to the registration of our local youth that can't afford it, or think they don't deserve to come. And so we work with First Nations programs all the way up to Mount Currie, South Surrey, to Nanaimo. We do East End Boys Club, which is the downtown inner city program. And we find all these kids every summer that want to come up, and we pay for them to come up. All they got to do is get there. And so they get to go through this program. And so generally it's 3 days. And so we'll do 6 sessions in the skill set. So if it's 2 sessions a day soccer, 1 session a day in mentorship and workshop. And so in the end, it's 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. When we do the overnights, it's like an 8 a.m. to kind of 10 p.m. 3-day immersive program. We can't do overnights in our new place yet, but we will eventually. And so the concept is that within these walls, they get a holistic experience of, mentors and cool people that they respect. Again, chefs. We've had video game designers from EA. We've had other professional athletes that have played in pretty much all sports we've had up. I've had a helicopter pilot land his helicopter onto the ground and give all the kids a helicopter ride. Talk about flight. What's it like to be a pilot? All these kind of things where the kids are just like, whoa, I'm at soccer camp and I just got a helicopter ride. You know what I mean? And so the idea was, after like 3 or 4 years, at 20, 30 kids at a time, again, to combat the numbers and money issue for, again, keeping the ideals where they should be, as that's development. I keep it at 20, 30 kids. I don't ever cap it to 200, because then I'm just trying to make money. And that's not the point if you're trying to be a youth developer, in my opinion. And so, so we keep it niche. But then after like 3 or 4 years, I realized that it's not really a scalable model. In a workshop level model, it is. So I guess that's scalable, but that's a lot of my time all the time. And again, I love being a so-called camp counselor, but it's not my 365. In all honesty, I have other things that I'm really passionate about that I want to do. But again, the idea of that was I needed something that was more scalable than my physical program. I can see the worth, I can know that it's working, but I need to scale it in a bunch of different ways. And so 2 years ago, we pitched this whole idea of scaling our program into a digital version, like masterclass, but for teenagers.
Awesome.
And we pitched it to EA. And again, EA, the video game company, they're in Vancouver. So we pitched them and they bought it in the room. And so they're like, whoa, this is a video game that's not toxic and it's educational and it's fun. And it's so the idea is like you take famous people that have blue check marks next to their name and you're like, clip your life into 5 episodes. Kids get to watch these like bit part biographies of like these cool people that they want to be, their role models. But then within that, they'll realize that the story is very similar to everybody that's reached a high performance. There's been a time that no one believed in you. There's been a time where you had a loss that maybe thought that you questioned it all. There's going to be a time where you broke your leg and you didn't know if you'd ever play again. There's going to be a time where, you had to believe in yourself to go through some adversity that's there. And so what these kids start to realize digitally is that we're all like each other. It's just how far do you want to go? How much do you want to push? Well, I didn't even know that, Jay-Z was adopted. You know what I mean? Whatever. He's not. But, the idea is that we learn a lot about, the contextualized versions of why we like things. And so, an actress we just did, we're making some episodes around her. She's got a degree in finance and that help on her contracts later when she became a famous actress. She's like, I knew the math. I know how to do that. And finance taught me that. And I guaranteed 90% of her fans had no idea that she had a finance background. So now you got these kids who love her as an actress that actually like numbers. And they're like, whoa, I didn't know that Tasya Teles like numbers too. That's cool. Now numbers are cool. And so now I like numbers and now I'm cool because Tasya likes numbers. And I didn't even know that, but now I've just gained more power inside of me because now I found a relational thing that I can be inspired by. And so again, these are ways we can digitally do this. We can scale this in a lot of different directions and we do it off the 9 forms of human intelligence. And so the cool part about the mental health side, and this is kind of where we really switch the core value of what we're doing this, and it's to monitor young people's mental health, but doing it through their own lens. And so instead of your face as your profile, it's going to be their brains. Like we will hopefully launch this year. We've been building this through COVID, which has been very difficult, just with logistics and things we have to do with content building and raising money and all the other things that come along with startups. But the idea is like we're taking the 2 toxicities away, and that's profile photos. Like, what do you look like? That starts the problem generally. Yeah. And then the second toxicity is what can I say to you? Because if I can't, use your image to mess you up, now I'm going to say something in you and then my words can mix you up. And so we're taking those things away in the beginning. So it's instead of your face, it's your brain split into 9 forms of human intelligence. So it's all based around like how we gamify your mind is going to be a much more interesting behavior to create than your generalized social media. And so we kind of want to be the antithesis to this. The kids are fed up with it. We're all fed up with it, in all honesty. And so now if we can bring in a social media, again, which is driven by celebrity influence, which all things are these days, but again, cool, let's play in that game, but let's do it authentically and say, okay, said celebrity, clip your life into 5 episodes. We don't just talk about the good stuff. We talk about adversities. We have episodes of the worst days of their lives, certain tragedies that have happened, and so we make sure that we talk about the bad stuff too, because that's also part of development. There's no such thing as adversity in everyone. Everyone has adversity, everybody. And so it's just like, normalizing that and being okay with that instead of just trying to put all this information on pedestals all the time that makes people feel like they're unattainable or that they're not good enough, and so it like takes those things away, but then it makes it fun because they're learning about celebrities and then the rewards become the best part of the gamified part. So not only do you take quizzes and challenges based on what those celebrities do, you get points for everything you participate in. So if you get a question right about the biography about, where did they move from Toronto to get their actor life? And if you didn't pay attention, you don't get the question right. But if you did, then you get points. And if you also do the challenges, which is like, a chef teaches you like, this is how to chop an onion. Now grab an onion, set up your phone, and you got to chop an onion to do the chef challenge, whatever. And again, you could do this for anything, push-ups for a fitness coach. You could do an art competition where you have to draw something from an artist. You could do anything that you can set up this thing. But everyone learns how to do this now through TikTok and Facebook challenges. We know how to set this up and do something and show that you did it. So this is like the whole interactive technology and why it becomes important to how we educate. Because when you can show somebody that you did it and interact with that, not only do you create a deeper bond of the interaction, but it becomes educational. Because if you do a push-up and I do a push-up, I just learned how to do this push-up contest. Maybe one day it will help me be like LeBron James. So that's cool. I'll do that. And I get points for it too. That's going to give me a Zoom call with LeBron, maybe if I win the LeBron Zoom call contest, or if not, I'll get to unlock the LeBron JPEG, which every kid gets if they complete all 6 episodes. So LeBron gives away a digital photo that every kid gets their screensaver, so they get to feel close to LeBron. So everybody wins. 100 kids a month will get to talk to him on Zoom and actually feel like they're in the room and ask him a question. And then at the top, 5 kids are going to get to come to the Lakers and do a training session if they live in LA. Like, that's a super scalable in a bunch of different directions. Everybody's winning the whole time. And LeBron gets an authentic way to tell his story. And so within that, it becomes, because I come from those worlds, I know kind of how enough time and effort and creativity can be required to help people tell their stories without feeling like they're being taken advantage of, like from a celebrity side. Again, I wasn't like a super celebrity, but I knew a bunch of them. And so I know the amount of energy, how to treat them, how to kind of really connect with them on certain levels. And again, if you keep the work light, you give them an authentic way to tell their stories, and you give them support along the way and give them an opportunity that they can create their own rewards and give back the way that they want to, then they're like, actually, that's kind of cool. Okay, cool. Yeah, I got an afternoon. Jimmy, set it up. You know what I mean? Like, it's that easy. But if you don't know how to get the conversation started, then a lot of times it falls dead before you get there. And so thankfully, because of what I was able to do in my life and be in the rooms that I got to be in, I got to have those conversations with people, and they got to see that I genuinely care. And so they're like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, that sounds good. And so finding people for the platform hasn't been hard. Again, EA is our founding partner in the app. So to have the biggest video game company in the world on your team from the start is a big, big deal. But again, it's a startup and there's a lot of moving parts around here. So that's my next challenge, is to really get it to the world and do it in a way where it has legs and it's sustainable. And that's kind of my biggest issue now, is like, how do you actually launch properly, do it in a way where if we take all the bet on social media and we don't win, then it goes away. Like, that's not fair either. So how do we plug into institutions, and how do we get users if social media doesn't accept it? And so that's my job now, is like starting to work with a lot of the programs, the institutions, the clubs, the academies, and really starting to dig that thing, because getting into those institutions isn't going to be easy either, because it's not their thing. And again, but the cool thing, and this is where we start getting the real good daggers, is that it's free. And they don't have to do anything except open their doors and say, here, kids, try this. It's fun. That's it. We're not asking you to pay money. We're not asking you anything. Just use it. And I guarantee you the kids will like it, because we do it. We've already done it for 7 years in person. And what's the difference? It's just that more kids get to use it now.
Wow. Jay, what an incredible vision, and the fact that you're putting this in action and making such a difference in these kids' lives. And I can't help but think, like, there's certain themes in this podcast that you kept sharing, and that's having your own lens to look at life through with your own experience, so that you step in and knowing, instead of, like you said, just reading off the internet. The value that kids are going to get from going through this experience, whether it be in person or to gamify the experience, which is where, let's face it, the next generation is really, that's going to be their portal into, as the world changes, it's really through technology. And what a beautiful way to bring in this idea of mentorship and this realistic experience that people can have. And even just from the profile image, I mean, you guys have thought of so many details that I think are just critical for child development and mental health, and not just mental health, but just like optimal health, and what else is possible, and being really curious about yourself, and to have more of a holistic life and a life perspective. So it's just so amazing what you're doing, Jay. David, do you want to top in and say anything before we close it up today?
Honestly, I'm breathtaking, man. Jay, that's brilliant, man. I mean, I love everything you're talking about, and the fact that you went and looked at something and said, this isn't good enough, and you decided to make something better. And not only have you made it better, like, it's brilliant, man. Like, I'm loving just like from the A to Z how you've set everything up and how you're developing it and evolving it. Mm. And I want to send my kid when he's 12, man. So if you guys stay connected,
bring him up. Everybody's welcome. That's the thing. Like,
for sure, man.
I just as you guys can see, I'm passionate, but I could talk all day about this stuff, because again, not only as I live it, but like, I just understand the power of it. And because, again, because we build these things, again, I don't do this alone. I have a great team around me. I have great people I'm very fortunate to work with. And at the end, you end up getting most of the experience and value from the kids. Like, you change a kid's life in 3 days through our program. And I get an email from a kid that's like I have so many stories every year. And again, we're a niche camp. We don't have thousands and thousands of kids, but it's enough for me to know that what we're doing is working. And like, we give away, like one of the moms emailed me this week. She's like, I get a new jersey because he's put his merch jersey that we give this. We get bucket hats and these cool like basketball jerseys. And she's like, he wants to wear it to school, but he put it up on his wall as like his trophy. Like he doesn't want to take it down from his wall as like his source of inspiration for his school year this year. Like he doesn't want to wear it to school. Like it's that, like in his mind, that's so high up on his team. He doesn't want to wear it to school. Like that for me, that's all I need to hear. I don't give a shit if that guy gives me $100 for 2 days. You know what I mean? Like I don't need his $100. That's not the point. Again, it's like you get these things every year where it's either a kid or a parent that tells me these things that like in 3 days, you can make more of a difference than 5 years of what they pay for that kid to do, and that be on that team or whatever. So again, that just makes me know that what I'm doing is working. How we scale it, how we actually tell the world and make sure we get it out in the right hands is our next challenge. And again, it's not going to be easy. Now, there's no one that, understands the hard road more than me. And so again, I'm coming in with that knowledge and that I expect that. I know it's not going to be an easy ride. It hasn't even to get to this point. It's been really hard. But again, like how can you get to a point where you could lose if the intentions are like this? Like, how could I ever lose? That something will happen. Or if not, I'll always have a program that kids love to come to. And so again, same idea. Like I just look at what can happen and don't worry about all the adversity that's about to come. Like we'll deal with that when we come.
Awesome, man. Such an important mindset and beautiful mic drop for everything you shared today, because it really is just that belief in yourself and to be able to move through the challenges of life and just trusting that you got it. So
yeah, well, and again, to your point, so as well, like we need people like you guys that want to, give up their really time-consuming jobs to spread word and create better mental health for people in your circles and in your worlds. And like this is how this works. And it's just always nice to be able to share stories and to be on people that share like mine, because as you guys know, you guys are both very successful people, and you've seen all the things I've talked about on a high level all day. But again, how do we share that? How do we, as a collective, get better at that? How do we share that knowledge? And again, part of it is doing what you're doing, but I'm just doing what I'm doing. And so again, together we can do this. So again, it's just I appreciate always an opportunity to come on and share stories like this and be a part of what you guys are doing.
It's amazing. Jay.
Thank you, Jay. This was awesome, man.
Yeah, you're bright light, man. And I think that all those kids that just so far they've got a chance to interact with you are blessed. But no doubt, like this is just the beginning. It's it really is. It's a kind of momentum that like you said has legs, and it's inevitable. It really is. That's the way I see it for you. So in any way we can support you, man, we're here. And like David said, we want to send the kids to the same camp. So we'll sign them up. Yeah.
Sounds good, guys. Again,
all right,
thanks for always around, and always appreciate the opportunity. Have a good day.
Thanks, buddy. Take care.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please be sure to subscribe to the Dr. Dads and share with your family and friends. You can also follow and interact with Dr. Nick and Dr. David on Facebook and Instagram for a daily dose of inspiration and the latest in health and wellness. Be well.